The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip. It's still a bit
and
low.
I'm CJ. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Live television.
It's Monday, you know.
We got to tweak it on the fly, and it's a Monday. That's right. Another big week in Fall River, and we have big news.
Yep. Unpaid taxes.
Unpaid taxes.
$10,047,931.74. Wow. Imagine what Fall River could have done with $10 million. I think that would have paid for the Streetscapes program.
True, which almost nobody wants, but that's okay. But it could have paid for it.
That's right.
But $10 million unpaid, and that's not even counting all the unpaid taxes that were forgiven.
That's right.
For political friends. So
now it's $8,178,811.74 of current unpaid taxes. That's current. $1,869,120 on taxes already taken by possession. So they've already got tax possessions in place. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this pans out, because guess what? You know who's responsible for tax collecting, right? The department. Isn't that the finance department?
Yeah. And guess what? You know, again, we talked a lot about these over projections in the budget, about collecting things, money to run the city. Now, what's the largest revenue source the city collects? Taxes. So we're not doing a very good job. We're not, and this is not a, to use a sesquipedalian word, a harbinger of things to come. This is not a good indicator that we're gonna make these new and larger numbers projected for this year's budget. That was, even though it was cut $1 million, is way out of whack, because we've said again, everything was over projected, and now we've increased again to the max of 2.5, when we've proven we can't even get last year's 2.5. So it's here's another situation of government. You see, you and I can't project that we're going to get something that when we know that we're not going to get it, and then use it as a justification to run our budget. Now, obviously, if you were running a company and you had a department that was not running efficiently, let's say $10 million or so under budget, or over budget actually, and what would you do? Would you think that somewhere along the line, as an efficient chief financial officer or chief executive officer of the city, who tells the chief financial officer what to do and makes up the budget, you think that we could track the taxes and find out we are not bringing them in? No, this is government. We do everything backwards. So what do? We increase the taxes to fix the fact that we can't collect the taxes. We don't come up with anything to make sure that we vigorously go after this. We not only do that, we make the problem more difficult, because then we raise the taxes and the fees on everybody else, so they have even less money to pay their taxes. We don't put a rein in on spending. We don't put a freeze on on hiring or for non-essential positions. We just create a whole bunch of positions, give everybody tons of raises, and stipends. And then at the end of next year, guess what? Flanagan 2.0. We remember the 8 million we're going to be short again. I don't know how the city is even solvent. You know, they collected $10 million less than they projected in last year's budget. And they're telling me we have a surplus. Was I correct that the mayor said we had a surplus, CJ?
Yes, he did.
Well, damn. You got a pretty good surplus then, because we're $10 million short in tax revenue and we still got a surplus, huh? 4 million? I don't know where they're hiding the money, but I like to find the cave.
Well, you know, this is interesting because this shortfall, and that's exactly what I'm going to call this, because this is $10 million they don't have. So this shortfall equals to almost 5% of the city budget.
Yeah.
Almost 5% of the city budget. That's a lot of the city budget. When you consider the fact that they're cutting in the budget, you know, overtime and stipends, could those overtimes and stipends been met with this $10 million? The streetscapes could have been paid for with the $10 million.
Not that it should have been paid.
Not that it should have been.
Let's make that very, very clear to the audience. You know, our position has been pretty clear about streetscapes. They shouldn't spend a dime on it until they fix all the residential streets in Fall River.
Right.
And but let's make that clear. But you're right. But as I said, again, government has different roles. They're running 5% of the budget is short. If it was in your house or my house, and I got a 5% pay cut, I would have to tighten the belt.
Yeah,
I would have to say, well, guess what? You know, I have fixed costs. I have gas, I have electric, I have, you know, and now my employer said, you know, times are tough, we're cutting your pay, or we're cutting out your overtime, which accounts for 5 or 10% of your pay. So now I have to say, oh, budget, come here. I guess I'm not going to go out to eat once a week. Maybe it's going to be once a month, or maybe once every 2 months, or maybe not at all for some people.
I guess I'm moving from pot roast to hamburger.
That's right, from pot roast to hamburger. We have a lot of people in this community who are not paying their taxes because they're basically elderly people on fixed income. I ran into a gentleman a week or so ago who was basically saying that the taxes were breaking him. He's going to lose his house. He's on a fixed income. There's nothing he can do. He can't go out and work. He's elderly. He's obviously, his health does not it does not allow him to go out and get a job, full-time job, even a part-time job. These are the people that are in dire distress. This is the faceless unknown people that are rock stars that are running our government now don't even think about. They're the faceless masses who don't matter. And you know, $10 million is a lot of money. And I'm sure there are some people that are just paying late, they're scofflaws, they're going to wait until somebody strangles the money out of them. But there are a lot of people, I would venture a guess if we broke this down, there are a lot of people who just can't afford it. They're trying to scrape up the money to pay their taxes as we speak. And that's a tragedy. That is a tragedy. And when you talk to candidates for council, when you talk to candidates for mayor, you ask them when they're finally going to put a lid on spending, when we finally going to see the city cut the fat. Remember years ago, that used to be a common theme, even though they didn't do it most of the time, but they did it a little bit.
Yeah,
but they used to say, we're going to cut the fat. We're going to cut the fat out of government. We're going to get rid of all the non-essential, all these duplications and redundant jobs. We're going to make this city, you're going to get your best bang for your buck, and we're going to try to hold fees and taxes down. That's a thing of the past. That's a fairy tale now. They told the old Goebbels lie. You're supposed to pay more every year because that's the way it is. Why? Because we say so. And that's baloney. We pay the taxes, and we get to determine what we want to pay for and what we don't want to pay for. And that determination, that self-determination, will be here in September. and again in November. So my advice to you is, anybody that tells you that they're fine with the way we're going, and increasing taxes to the max every year, increases fees every year, I would not give them a vote.
I agree with you. And while we're on taxes, we only talked about it real briefly on Friday. Governor Baker abruptly yanked the plan to tax online sales. And that was a court decision, which I wrote about in the Weekend Flush, which, by the way, we got a lot of comments again and more subscribers, so please keep subscribing to the Weekend Flush. And they're going to try to make this not a regulation, they're going to make it a policy, because policies, it's easier for them to get through. But under Quill versus North Dakota, the Supreme Court ruled that states cannot tax out-of-state businesses for sales. You cannot charge a sales tax made by out-of-state businesses. And they're still trying to do it. And this is done on the brink of a major problem, because they have a budgetary shortfall at the state, so much so that we are one of 11 states that has not approved a budget. We don't have even a budget for Massachusetts. So how are we paying the bills?
Well, again, magic money. And the last line of this article says that by pulling the directive, the administration is giving up an estimated $30 million a year in tax revenue, even as it deals with yet another budget shortfall. Well, he's given up another $30 million, but I know who didn't give up their $34 million.
That's right.
Or $35 million.
I know Alan Sylvia kept it. I know Carol Fiola got it.
I mean, all our representatives are great representatives up in Boston. It's like, we don't care if we don't care we got $440 million. Well, I guess now if we give up this $30 million, it was in the budget, now it's going to be a $470 million. So we're going to be around $500 million very shortly. Yep. when we look around. But again, here we go, right from top to bottom, an insensitivity for the working man and the taxpayer.
And again, Massachusetts is one of 11 cities and 11 states that have no budget as of yet. New Jersey, Illinois, Maine, Wisconsin, Oregon. These are all states that do not have a budget yet. And how can you operate without a budget?
I believe Illinois, it's 3 years in a row.
Yeah, they still don't have a budget.
They haven't had a budget in 3 years. So when everybody panics over a 112 budget, how about a 136 budget? Yeah, 36 months. It's like they haven't had a budget in three years.
No, so, exactly.
I mean, look, it just goes to prove one thing. If you force them to operate,
they can.
They can, because Illinois, as far as I know, actually I did see on a national news, I saw one state rep that said we should just close the state, eliminate Illinois, and make it part of the two adjoining states, or either annex it totally into Ohio, but 3 years without a budget. But they still manage to run things, and they always say they won't run things, but they always manage to do it. Again, you give them the Sahara Desert, they'll run out of sand. The only way they'll ever stop spending is when we make them stop spending, and we do that at the ballot box. If you tell somebody that they're put on notice, unless they cut all the fat out of the budget and justify every penny they spend, they're not going to get your vote. That simple.
No, and this is the biggest problem we have. They just don't care.
No. Well,
they just don't care.
Pretty damn obvious in Boston. Our state reps and senators took, over $30 million in pay raises in the face of a over $400 million deficit. So, I mean, I'd like to see anybody in a company that's running $40 million. We won't make it $400 million because this is a state. So, just visualize this. You work in a company and the company's running $40 million in the red. You're on the verge of collapsing. And everybody walks in the office of the CEO and says, we all demand a huge pay raise. Well, guess what? You're not going to get it. And the company, you're probably not going to have a job if you don't not get it. As a matter of fact, probably make some severe belt-tightening maneuvers, because that's the way it works for everybody else in the world except government. And that's the problem. That's why you say, well, do you hate government? No, I don't hate government. Government is a necessary evil. What I do hate are the people who make a career out of government and make a career out of sucking the lifeblood out of the taxpayer. Because, government isn't a being. It's not alive. The people who are in the government are the people. We have a good government or a bad government only based on who we elect and who we hold accountable. If your child blows their whole allowance on the first day of the month and they get a monthly allowance, are you going to continue to give him one every day until he blows your entire budget? I don't think so. But we allow these children to do that virtually every year. So that's. So that's about it. I mean, we know what a government is, but our next story, am I in the right order here? The mayor's gather in Miami Beach.
Oh, that was a follow-up.
A follow-up, I know. We showed the opulent pool area and room that a rock star.
And the follow-up to that was, not only did he get an opulent room, as I wrote in the Weekend Flush. Did anyone who read the Weekend Flush knows about the rock stars that were actually present? He went to 4 days of concerts and parties. 4 days. And
Yeah,
I'm disgusted by that.
Let's read, for our people who didn't see the Flush, who should go and read it, obviously, and get it. Read a list of some of the performers that were at that.
I have the full agenda. It's 62 pages. The agenda for the conference showed the following events that the mayor attended. White Hot Night in Miami Beach, which was an exclusive poolside party with a concert by Stephen Marley. The Welcome Aboard Party, sponsored by Caribbean Cruise Lines, with a concert by Gloria and Emilio Estefan. They had a beach party Sunday where the conference spent $8,000 on flip-flops. Hey, Mr. Mayor, wear your flip-flops. I want to see you in the flip-flops on the 4th of July. And Norwegian Cruise Line sponsored an end of the Hawaiian Nights party for the entire end of the whole kibosh there.
Wow.
Celebrity performers included Steve Marley, Emilio and Gloria Estefan, Mark Anthony, KC and the Sunshine Band, and Pitbull. This is why.
Yeah, suavemente.
Yeah.
That's it, baby.
This is why the mayor allegedly brought a date with him to the conference. And if he did, who paid for it? I want to know that.
Yeah, Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony's a huge, of course, Latino star. Is married to, what's her name? I can't. Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez for a while, and one of the top singers, of course. Pitbull is a big star, especially in the Latino community. Stefan was a multiple Grammy Award winner, the big time star. Stephen Marley, of course. I mean, hey, look, you're going to do it right.
But
let's do it right, baby.
Here's the kicker: the city this was held in was Miami.
Yep.
Guess who's not a member of the United States Conference of Mayors?
The mayor of Miami.
The mayor of Miami.
Unbelievable.
Imagine that.
That's right. Let those rubes spend money in my city. That's
right.
why my city got voted the worst city in the country to live in, but it's one of the best cities to visit.
That's
because
right.
they have parties like this. Didn't they go to South Beach too?
Yes, they did.
I think I read that agenda. Didn't they have
That's the beach party.
The beach party was in South Beach.
I believe so. Yes.
One of the premier.
And they got flip-flops. Hey. That was worth the $8,000, I'm sure.
Well, yeah.
And the money that we spent as a city for this. This is why New Bedford wants their mayor out of this conference. And the people of Fall River should want their mayor out of this conference too. We have $10 million in unclaimed taxes, but we can spend thousands of dollars on being a part of this conference of mayors, which, by the way, returns nothing. Zero.
I wonder if they had a course at this conference about ensuring that your tax revenue is collected.
No. They talked about youth programs and opiate addiction, and guess what?
Yeah.
It brought nothing to Fall River.
Oh, yeah.
All it brought to Fall River was the bill.
Yeah, you know what this is? This is a conference for the mayors to talk about the feel-good, what's in the news today, to show that, look at me. I got all the new answers, except there's a simple old answer too. There used to be an old saying, no ticket, no laundry.
That's it.
The fundamentals of running a community is to collect your taxes and ensure that you have sufficient money to run that community, and then we have to prioritize how we're going to spend that money. But none of this mundane, foundational stuff that actually allows you to run the community are in these conferences. You look at that conference, it was all...
It's all big cities.
Well, and not only that, it's all fluff kind of stuff. It's like streetscapes. Let's do streetscapes down in Appalachia.
Yeah.
Get one of those towns where they got one general store and let's pave that whole one street, and that will definitely improve its economy.
Of course.
Come on. Yeah, where does streetscapes work? It works in communities that have a very well-developed tourist.
Hence why they did it in Miami,
South
along
Beach,
Collins Avenue.
Miami, and San Francisco, Chicago. You walk the Magic Mile, $1 Million Mile in Chicago, and you go down to the Navy Pier. Chicago's got a big tourist industry.
That's it.
In spite of the fact that they murder somebody every 10 seconds in the other areas of the city. That shows the separation between tourist destination and funds generated by tourism and actual living conditions of the city, because most of that money is taken out of the city of Chicago. And, again, here we go. It's like, let's go to Miami Beach and party hardy.
It's just very interesting, I'll tell you. As we know about the Mike Aguiar and, the missing money, because there is missing money, by the way. $70,000 was awarded to River to Recovery, and they never got it. And Attorney Rainey Brown went out, and she said something about it. And she says it's all lies. Okay? So, and she says, Fall River Addiction Recovery Nonprofit lied to and deceived by Aguiar. This isn't getting any better for the administration. And this isn't going to get any better because this is federal and state money. Not like we don't have enough room as a federal investigations, but now we might get federal and state investigations on top of that. And this time, one of the mayor's hand-picked minions, his good friend, his mentor, who spent money like a drunken sailor, may be getting us in trouble. Does Fall River, with $10 million in uncollected taxes, have the money to pay back this money to the federal government or the state government on the misappropriation or the misspending of funds? And for the mayor to turn around and say, I didn't approve it, I had no idea, tells me that you're doing something wrong.
Well, the mayor did study political science, and I'm sure somewhere in that, it's at one of those courses in political science, they explained to them that, Harry Truman's old adage, the buck stops here. When you're in charge, you're ultimately responsible. That's the easy way out, the coward's way out. Throw everybody else under the bus. It wasn't me, I didn't know. Well, you're the mayor. You're the CEO. If your company pollutes the environment, it's your company. If your administration allows rampant abuse of spending, it's up to you to control it. But then again, if you go down, and watched Gloria Stefan, you know, on a city dime and go to a conference like this, which realistically, from what I look at, doesn't have a heck of a lot of applicability to Fall River, and you know, again, it's just a little mini vacation. And
Yeah, according to Attorney Brown, they were talking about $30,000, anywhere from $1,000 to $30,000. But in some of the numbers that I've read in other news outlets and looking over it, there's about $70,000 that was either misspent, misappropriated, whatever. And, you know, I think Mr. Aguiar better understand that this is going to follow him for a very long time. He may never get another job. Also, a lot of the money that came in, he gave to his former or current employer, SSTAR. I'm sure Nancy Paul was quite happy with getting that money. So, as you know, only in Fall River.
yeah, well, one thing, most people do know is, you remember that old commercial, you can't fool with Mother Nature?
Yep.
Well, you can't fool with the feds. You're going to start misappropriating funds. You might get away with it in Fall River because they still haven't figured out who misappropriated the 22 window money. And I haven't forgotten that, but now it's way in the past, and most people have forgotten it. Or as we overheard in the city council chamber one time, when somebody was going to be brought on a carpet, another city institutional person who has been in this game a long time, leaned over and said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "Go in there, you'll take the heat tonight, and in a month or two, everybody will forget this." And you heard it, and I heard it, because we were sitting a row in front, and he leaned over and said, "Don't worry about it. They're gonna take you to task, but in a month or so, everybody will forget."
And that's the problem.
And that's the problem. But I'll tell you one thing: the feds don't forget. And if you go and ask Al Capone's relatives now, family, you can tell, it took the IRS to put Al Capone in jail, even though he murdered half of Chicago, and they never convicted him once about that. The feds got him in jail.
Right.
And if you're gonna mishandle money and misappropriate money, my advice to you is make sure it's not federal money.
There's still, and we've got 2 minutes left, so there's still no deal yet on the rewrite of the Massachusetts marijuana law. I wrote about that in the Weekend Flush as well. And at this point, only through extraordinary parliamentary procedures will they be able to meet their June 30 deadline. Well, that's already came and went. The marijuana legalization advocates who wrote the ballot question noted Beacon Hill's tight time frame, and they're not meeting it. They don't want the state to in any way change the marijuana law. They're advocating that it stays the same. Legalization of advocates, I'm going to quote it, have recently objected to any changes to the law. But the state is saying that they should release the money for the creation of the Cannabis Control Commission now. And lastly, before we got 50 seconds left here, the Interior Department wants one more go at the Mashpee Wampanoag land ruling. The ruling will not be final until the 27th. So,
well, we'll see what happens. But getting back to those states, but this was the headline here. It says, states without a plan. 11 U.S. states haven't passed a budget. I disagree with that headline. They do have a plan. Tax the crap out of everybody that lives in their state.
Exactly.
Because that's always their plan.
Right.
Because if you look at the city of Fall River's budget, we don't have a plan except to tax us more and spend more money. That's what that budget says to me.
Tax the hell out of us and make sure that we bankrupt each individual taxpayer. Hey, people, have a great 4th of July weekend.
Enjoy the 4th of July. We will see you on Wednesday, the 5th, and, don't eat too many hot dogs and hamburgers.
And remember, the 4th is about our independence. Well, let's get independent from tyranny and stay angry with all this crap.
And remember, if you go to Miami, it'll be filet mignon and lobster tails, not hot dogs and hamburgers.
That's right. Have a great 4th of July. Stay safe and stay angry.